Hey guys, and welcome back to Socks on a Rooster Furniture Refinishing. My name is Sonja Chandler, and today's video is going to go over a very simple topic, but one that's incredibly important to your furniture finishes. And that is a drip-free and brush stroke-free base coat. If you're anything like me, you spent years trying to combat the continual drips and the brush stroke marks from my paintbrush that caused my base finish to be less than desirable. So I spent years doing it incorrectly and could kick myself for not knowing these two little secret tips on how to get the most smooth finish possible so that you can continue on with your old world finishes and other techniques that you'd like to try. But the secret is getting this base coat down first and perfect. So as unexciting as it may be, it's actually kind of exciting because when you master this, you feel like you've won. So let me show you how I do this and let's get started.
Okay guys, so this is where you start out just making sure you have a very clean surface. I used to, if you can believe it or not, I used to skip this step at least thoroughly. I would wipe my pieces down, but I didn't really actually clean them. And I ended up having to fix things later on after a coat of 2 of paint. So clean it very, very well, and then you'll be ready to go. I just make sure I've covered every bit of that, and then I get my 2 secret weapons out, which is a misting bottle and some sandpaper. Yep, that's the secret, guys. Also make sure your paint is really mixed up so it's not separated when you open that lid. Give it one last wipe down. I try to make sure any last little residual cleaner or anything else is off of it. Make sure that paint's mixed up, and then dip your brush in only halfway up your bristles. You don't need to run it all the way up. Make sure you have enough on, and then you're really wanting to lay down your paint onto the surface. You won't have to use your misting bottle here as much in the beginning on the first layer because your paint is going to go fairly smoothly over your smooth surface, unless of course it's porous or rough. But just lay it down, one even coat, and try to avoid the drips and the ridges, as I say, as you can get on the very edges of your pieces, but just watch for drips. Also go with the grain. If you're on the flat panel of a cupboard, like I am here, you want to go with the grain of that front panel. And then on each side piece, you want to go with the direction of those side pieces. So go with the grain on all of those pieces. Make sure you get in every area and get complete coverage over all sections of the cabinet door. And once you've got that first coat on is when you'll really want to utilize your misting bottle going into your second coat, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. But this first coat usually goes down very smooth. This is where you mainly watch for, drips and pooling here. But once we move on to the second coat is when we really need that spray bottle to help us move the second coat of paint. Let this dry and we'll move on. Okay guys, and now that my first coat is dry, I'm coming back with my sandpaper and I'm looking along these edges, and if you see any ridges, as I call them, I just knock those really gently down with the sandpaper. I just want those to be smooth again to make sure that when my second coat gets on, I don't have those ridges where that paint has pooled. Now I don't have much because I was watching and I was using the mister slightly in the beginning, but as you start to lay down your second coat, and all of us know that have used mineral paints before, you are going over that a slightly porous surface when you go down on that second coat, and so that can create a little bit of friction for your paintbrush. You want to almost kind of feather across the top with enough paint on your brush. Not too much, but enough. Now, even so, you might need to mist it, which is what I just did here. And it is a dream after you add just a small fine mist of water across the top. And this is what I do, and this is what I wish I would have discovered much sooner in my furniture painting days, because I get the clearest and cleanest application with just a tiny bit of water misted over the surface. I will even come in and just mist the dry first layer in some areas. And as I put my paint down, it just goes on like a dream. And you're going to have a lot less streaks, and it's actually enjoyable to paint because you're not fighting the friction of that dry coat underneath. And you can actually enjoy the process then. So again, you are still watching for drips. You just want to make sure you get into every nook and cranny, watching those areas to where the paint could pool or ridge, and just use your mister bottle. You don't want to use too much because you can end up with a watery surface. So the misting bottles are great. A tiny little spritz is all you need, and it gives you just enough moisture to continue to lay down that second coat of paint. And once that's complete, you may want to repeat the process once again. But as you can see, when you're using that mister bottle, which a lot of times I'll just keep in my hand, I will sometimes mist the dry panel before I even start, and it's ready to go. You'll get the smoothest, most glass-like surface of all. And that's what we really want before we start our other finishes, whether it's just a simple wax or we want to continue on with another technique. So once you get this all on, you can then just determine whether you want to do a third coat. But once this is all dry, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just take my paintbrush and make sure I don't have any ridges on those edges. Take my mister, make sure I've gotten any areas that look like there are streaks from a brush, and smooth those over really well. And if there's any areas that just need a little bit more blending, it's a lot of blending, which is basically what you're doing with that base coat. You want that to be the best beginner surface, and then you can move on from there. But if you need one more coat, I take my brush and I put it into a bag, and when you're finished, you will have this perfect finish. So I hope this helps, guys. This was just a couple of my little tricks on how to get the perfect base coat finish.